Hi and welcome to another edition of the Leadership Untitled podcast with me, Rob Moores. This is the show that brings together experts from the fields of leadership, L&D, coaching, HR, you name it, to share hints and tips and just have conversations that will hopefully help you navigate that field of leadership that little bit easier. My guest this week is Judy Oliver, who's the co-founder and commercial director of Clarity 4D. Now, Judy started Clarity 4D up as a profiling company with colleagues historically because psychometrics have been complex, expensive, elitist and temporary. She wanted to break that mould. She wanted to make it more accessible to more people, including being passionate about young people and charities in the public sector, wanting them to be able to understand colour energies, communication styles, personality styles, and how they can help them perform in the ways that they need to perform. So, without further ado, join me in welcoming Judy to the podcast. Hi Judy, welcome to the Leadership Untitled podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thank you, and thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to this little chat.
No, you're very welcome. We've just been comparing notes on the weather as well, which, you know, is the obvious thing to do. But I think it's, given the fact we've had around 8 months of rain and now it's glorious sunshine, I think it was the right thing to do as well.
Absolutely. What a good day to choose, Rob.
Yeah, for us to be locked inside. Yeah, we should have done this outside somewhere, walking around a park. But no, silly us. So what I like to do to start us off, Judy, is just to tell people what it is or what the reason was I've invited my guest onto an episode. So for yourself and for those listening or watching, so Judy's a co-founder of Clarity 4D. And Clarity 4D, if you've not heard, go and take a look. Really good stuff. It's colour energies. So you think about some of those psychometric tests you may have done in the past or the sessions that you may have been on, talking about things like personality or communication styles. That's what Judy and her organisation do. And it's a tool that I use as well. Absolutely no problem in saying that on this, because I genuinely believe in it. And I've seen it being done really, really bad. Not Clarity 4D, I hasten to add, by any facilitators, but similar things. And that leads to a lot of resistance. So I really wanted to today chat about, you know, the real potential and possibility of this stuff, but also maybe a little bit about some of the resistance it gets and why that might be. And who better than to get yourself, Judy, co-founder of Clarity 4D, on to chat about it as well. So that's the reason.
Great. Okay. Yeah, well, where shall we start?
Well, I guess we'll start, Judy. How did you get involved in this sort of stuff? Because, you know, it's hardly on the careers choice at school.
No. Well, it came about through the various jobs I used to have when I was bringing up the children. I ended up without any training as the national sales manager for a party plan company, the sort of thing that does Tupperware and that sort of thing. But it wasn't Tupperware, it was ladies' clothes and household goods. And they kept on promoting me because I seemed to be good at it. But one of the things I kept on saying was, can you give me some training? I just don't know what I'm doing. And then sadly, they went bust, and so I had to find something else to do. And I joined an organisation called Dale Carnegie Training. Are you familiar with Dale Carnegie? With How to Win Friends and Influence People? That man. And because I loved I had done a lot of training with these ladies who were supposed to go out and sell, and they weren't. You know, I ended up training them. I thought, actually, this is what I like doing. So I learned my craft, if you like, with Dale Carnegie training, which meant that I had to deliver facilitation, and they were really quite hot on making sure that you went through a lot of hoops before you were good enough to be a Dale Carnegie instructor. But then I felt it was a bit Americanized. So, and I wondered, because the program I was facilitating lasted for 12 weeks. The delegates would come along in their own time in the evening for 12 weeks. And I wondered why there seemed to be a dropout of people after about the second or third week. And then it came to me that those people were probably had a preference for introversion. And the whole Dale Carnegie program, very American, great program for helping people with confidence and presentation skills and everything like that. But it was not geared toward, it was very, this is the way we're going to do it. You came out like a Dale Carnegie sausage at the end of it. They no concept that people were different and had different approaches. And I came across another company that fascinated me because they started to talk about the individual. I worked with them as an independent practitioner for some years, but felt there was something missing there as well. So with my colleagues, we created Clarity 4D because we wanted it to be simple, not too many complex graphs and explanation, deep psychological explanation. People haven't got time to understand and absorb that. We wanted it to be simple. We wanted it to be affordable so that more people could benefit from the understanding, and which would then cascade through organizations, and it'd be far more inclusive than the cost was rather inhibited. So basically only senior managers were being profiled by typically by other products. So those were two things we wanted to do differently. And the third thing, we wanted it to be effective, because so many times we hear about people getting a profile, oh, I am A, being given a label, which then boxes them in, and they don't do anything more with it. So our 4D refers to the 4 dimensions of personal development. And we think that's a process that you go through. And the first one is discover. 1D is discover. You get your profile back. This is describing how you see yourself. The 2D, which is how do other people see you? That's the key. And so we say, please, will you share your profile and have a discussion? So 2D is discuss. And that is the magic, actually, when people start talking and understanding other people better. And their third dimension is diversifying. So when you understand that other people see you a bit differently, think about maybe I could do a bit of more of be a better listener, or maybe I could be more assertive in the meetings, something like that. So diversify your style. And the fourth dimension is develop time over time. Time is the fourth dimension if you are a physicist. So that was what we wanted to create, and we did. And using the colors from Aristotle, who identified the 4 elements of fire, earth, wind, and air. So we linked the colors to those elements and talk about the energy within those elements. We have all 4 energies within us. We have some we prefer more than others. And energy cannot be destroyed, it changes form. So basically, the message that we're saying is that you're not boxed. You have a mixture of colors, and you use some on some occasions, which may not be your preferred one. It may be your lowest color. But if you're in an emergency situation, there's a fire, you would probably use your red energy to get out of that building quickly. That is using your red energy.
Absolutely.
Does that give you enough explanation?
Yeah, it does. I think it's really good explanation. I think, what the things you've mentioned there are the things that really stood out for me when I was looking. So I was looking at a tool that I could bring into my leadership programs and my coaching interactions, that would do exactly what you said. And one of the reasons why some of those other tools out there weren't preferable to me are exactly what you said. Some of them are a little bit too complex and get quoted back to me, I did something similar to this years ago and I got all these different letters, but I can't remember what they are or what they meant, that sort of stuff. I'll share the story I just mentioned before we started recording, that there was a senior manager who said to me the other week that he once went on to a similar color-based session with an organization, and because his profile had come out somewhere towards the middle of his overall chart, so I think, you know, quite a balanced wheel, if you want to use that terminology. The facilitator actually said to him, "Oh no, we can't have that. I need you to pick a color because you need to go in one of the corners so we can run an exercise." And I'm like, no, why would you do that? Now, as a coach, you know, it excites me that the result is the result. And from a one-to-one coaching opportunity through to team comparisons, which Clarity 4D give, what I love is this idea that, and you've mentioned it already, this idea that it's about energy. So tell me a little bit more about that. So rather than, I guess, for the audience, rather than it being about being an introvert or being an extrovert, as quite often it's pitched, tell me more about that energy instead.
Well, the idea of the energy, as I said, it cannot be destroyed, it changes form. But if we can understand which we prefer, so this is around the Jungian preferences, that we have prefer to do some things one way over the others, but it doesn't mean to say we can't do the other. And they would be linking into things like how we make decisions, whether we make a decision from our head thinking or from our heart feeling. That would be a preference, and sometimes people have to make that decision because of their role, which goes against their preference, but the energy is still there to do it. So what we like to do is link the idea of the elements and the energy, and then use that phrase, when I'm in my element, I perform at my best. So you can, doing a profile can help you say, oh, okay, these are my colors, these are my energies. Now I understand that I really can, I'm in the flow when I'm doing this sort of work. Mm-hmm. But when I have to do for me, it would be the blue type of work, which is around detail and analysis, and that's my lowest preference. And I can do it because I have to. I can tell you, I have to look at translating the profile and do all sorts of things. But it's a drainer of energy for me. Really drains me. It makes me irritable. I feel I need to have a nice reward at the end of the day, a nice glass of gin and tonic, because it isn't my preference, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. And I think that's what we're talking about, really, that to help people understand, and even help people maybe if they're in a square peg in a round. No, what's that expression? A square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, that works.
Something like that. Maybe it's because their natural preferences, that they're, the role that they're doing is not what they really they doesn't make them feel that they're in their element, put it that way.
Absolutely. I think there's, what I really love about this is that, that you can be doing these other things. And so often these tools are criticized because it's, well, that's what you're good at. Don't do that. Don't do this. Do this instead. Do that. But I actually find there are certain things, and it's helped me discover about myself, that there are certain things that I really love doing and I'm really good at, but they still really drain my energy. So understanding that, rather than this being a case of, for example, I would absolutely, if I had to put myself in a introvert versus extrovert box, to many people's surprise, I would put myself in introvert.
Yeah,
but allowing me to kind of think of it more of almost like a gauge of a 1 to 10, I might go, oh, I'll probably just creep myself into a 6 or 7 then, because I don't mind it, I like it. But if I'm surrounded by strong extroverted personalities, I'll just retreat back. But I wouldn't call myself an extrovert, but I'd score myself in there. So it allows for much more nuance to find. So it'd be interesting as those listening to this episode start to think about that. Are the things that you do that maybe you now do well but drain you of energy, and maybe even nature versus nurture, you've come to actually really enjoy some of those things, but they still drain you, and like Judy, you need to go home at the end of the day and have a quiet gin and tonic and forget about the world.
Yeah, just feel as if you've done a good day's work. Definitely. Yeah, yeah. So I think that's a key thing to remember, that we're on a gauge, as you say. So when I think about, I'm no longer as young as I was. um, when I was younger, I would put myself high on the score of extroversion. When you finished the training day,
Mm.
I was in my element with the presentation, facilitation. I love all that. But at the end of the day, I would go down to the bar and talk about it and, bounce ideas off other people, listen to people, what they were hoping to hear, it's a great day, all that sort of thing. I was really, well, the extroversion of getting energy from the outside world, bouncing ideas, listening to people, chatting with people. However, the older I've got, I still would say I have a preference, if we're going to talk about that, for extroversion, but it's certainly come down the scale. I'm quite happy now, not going down to the bar. I will still have my gin and tonic, but I might have it in my room rather than in the bar. So that time of recharging the batteries is quite valuable to me now. I don't know whether it's to do with age, but that's my personal experience. I would say I've moved along the continuum towards less extroverted.
I think that's crucial. That doesn't mean you've become an introvert, because you'd have to say that if you'd said before you were an extrovert. But you don't have to be the first person on the karaoke while you're sober to be more extroverted, I guess. And that rings true for me. And I think in the world of people who'll be listening to this as well, you might be a leader who's surrounded by a team all day, high energy team. You might be someone in L&D or HR who's, again, maybe leading workshops or in those meetings. And even from myself, if I go away and do 2 days worth of training and I stay overnight between, in the middle, the sort of things you're talking about, there'll be some times when someone in the group says, "Oh, should we all get together tonight, go to the bar, go out for a meal," whatever it might be. And there'll be some people listening to this that go, "Oh yeah, I hate it when people do that. But I go along with it. I go along with it. I go out." And I've kind of got to that point in my life where I'm okay saying, no, I'm just going to just do maybe a little white lie now and again, do some planning for tomorrow. I just need a minute. Give me a call when you get back and I'll come down for a nightcap if I'm not too drunk from the gin that Judy's provided. But it starts to make you understand yourself a little bit more. I think it's crucial. So why, going into that world of leaders and teams, why should, you mentioned earlier on this idea of in your element, you perform at your best. Why should leaders care about this stuff, about themselves and for the teams?
Well, we do a profile called the leadership profile. And it's based on the same four principles of 4D, but more around the person as a leader. And one of the things I have been asked to do, and I bet you have as well, Rob, is go and run a training session on motivation. You've got to run how to motivate other people, basically. And I don't think anybody can motivate somebody else, but a leader's role, in my opinion, is to create the environment where the individual can be more self-motivated. So you're giving them the tools, the environment, the support, the communication, everything that suits their own personality, so that they're able to flourish and grow. That's the leadership role for me. And so the profile that we provide helps you to understand who the people are in your team, recognize their colors, and then to give them some tips on how the color preferences may respond. What would they like to have? Each one would be different. Some typically leaders try and motivate people by what motivates themselves. So whatever their motivation, and if they have a lot of red energy, for instance, they may be motivated by hitting targets and deadlines and, ticking, and I've done that and got there and, taken the action. I can remember one of my bosses way back in the sales life. They they kept on saying, if you hit this target, we'll give you this reward. You know, to me, I actually have more of a yellow preference, and it really didn't land well with me. I thought, I don't, you know, I'm doing everything I can. I work with my team. I'm doing everything I can to get the sales up, and I don't really care whether or not I get this reward. What would motivate me? What would make me feel more inclined to put even more in is being asked and involved in setting, rather than being told what my target is, being asked, what do you think your team can contribute, and talking about it and saying, where do you think, you know, involving me in setting those sorts of goals. So it was a big lesson to me that you can't try and motivate other people by what you find switches you on. So that's the sort of thing that would be in the leadership profile to help make you more aware of those sorts of things, and then to highlight the qualities of each of the colours in terms of leadership. Some are good, but if you overdo them, they can swing into too much, which cannot not be so good. So let me think what I can give you an example there. When you get too much empathy, so somebody with a lot of green energy as a leader, an empathetic leader, you would think, oh, that's good. That's a lot of, you know, a lot of emotional intelligence involved with that leader. But if we get too much of the green energy and getting over involved, then it can come across, well, you could be seen as a bit of a walkover, I guess. You know, that sort of. I'm just sort of giving you some ideas of too much of our color preferences can land badly with other colors. You know, people with other color preferences. So we have to be aware of not overdoing it as well.
Definitely. I know that we had a chat the other week because I'd had Thomas Erickson on one of the episodes who wrote the Surrounded by Idiots stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then his second book was exactly on this subject around, well, he again provocatively called it Bad Leaders and Lazy Employees, because it was very much about, this is the perspective that other colour energies might have about those colours. So other colours might have a perspective about those other colour energies that they're idiots, or that they're bad bosses, or that they're lazy employees. But it's this other dynamic. There's again, it's not just pigeonholing as a colour. Suddenly we might have a dynamic of leader and team member, or leader and senior leader, or leader and CEO, or husband and wife, and child and parent, or whatever it might be, and it completely changes it. As you mentioned there, you know, someone who's a leader of a team and has lots of green energy, I guess, is potentially a very different dynamic to a team led by someone with lots of red energy. So those perspectives become really important. So from a leader's point of view, how do they start to actually embrace that and use that then?
Well, the more they talk with other people using the profile, the better they have an understanding, and then it can really customize their relationship, the way they communicate with people. But they need to understand and have those conversations with people. So, Rob, if you know the 2D exercise we have, when people swap their profiles, share their profiles, so the leader would give his profile to a team member and vice versa, and they pick out sentences that are descriptive words, sentences that are in the profile. They pick out two that they would say affirmation. This is what I see, and I can, you know, giving evidence of when they've seen this this behavior, which is good affirmation. But they also pick out two sentences in that profile that they're curious to know more. How true is this? So what we're doing is encouraging them to share the profile and pick out these sentences, which will then start a conversation. And we're not saying, I think this about you, you know, it's saying, oh, this is interesting. In the profile, it says this about this. How true is that? So you're not being confrontational. You're opening the conversation, which we think is a far more effective way of of having, well, you can using it for performance reviews, all sorts of different ways of using the profile and to help understand the leaders, to understand their team members.
Oh, 100%. I mean that, and you've also got there's also the kind of perspective cards that you guys have, which I think are really valuable. It's quite funny. There was someone with, like, without pigeonhole people, this person was a particularly red. Particularly red in their energy all day, every day, in every way possible, including in their own personal profile and in their 2D profile, how others saw them. And it was lovely that they kind of looked at these perspective cards, and they looked on one side of all the things that red energy tends to be associated with it. Yeah, no problem with all of them. Turned it over to perspectives and going how others might see it, and went, yeah, equally happy with all of them. That's about right. Move on. Here we go. Whereas the kind of more green energy ones, when you turn them over, it'd be like, oh no, I hope people don't really think that about me. Oh, that's terrible. See, it's really interesting to kind of understand what those perspectives are, how that might mean other people might react to you or seeing you or assume about you, the way that you say things or communicate or send emails or whatever it might be. So there's a real intent versus result thing going on there, but also allowing you then to maybe tailor those relationships. And I think this is the other thing, and we'll come on shortly about why sometimes maybe people are hesitant or resistant to these things. But I think sometimes the kind of the guidance tends to be that, well, if you've got a team of people who are red and you've got lots of green energy, or vice versa, you need to be that. You need to be that. And I had a call the other week with a colleague of mine. We talked about this, where we kind of go, well, trying to be something you're not, and you've mentioned it with energy already, trying to be the extreme of something that you're not more naturally is very, very difficult and draining. So how do you start to dial those things up without falling into those traps of it being detrimental to yourself?
Well, again, I think that if you did a team workshop and people would show up on the team map, because we do ask people to answer the questionnaire as their authentic, instinctive self, not the way they have their role at work. People may then understand that actually Fred, who comes across as a raging red energy, he's trying to overcompensating, because actually he leads with green. So maybe if Fred realized that he can be more natural in his way he communicates, and other people understand that he's not actually that negative red energy. It's helping people to understand how, and it is difficult to be authentic about it, because some of the things I've heard over the years is, well, you're being manipulative by trying to communicate in the same way as that other person. I don't see it as being manipulative. I think it shows respect for the fact that you recognize that your styles are different, and by diversifying, which is what we're talking about, for that person, and the conversation you have doesn't mean you're changing your personality. It's just recognizing that actually you're quite adaptable, you're quite a skilled leader, because you can engage with that person on a much deeper level than you would have done if you carried on doing the same old, which is your style, and you're not going to change.
Definitely. I mean, those who've seen some of my podcasts before, and you kind of see in the background here, this little coach approach framework I've got on my wall for those looking on YouTube. That's the sort of thing exactly I try and talk about with people. So you don't need to kind of jump from the green all the way into the red to try and communicate or get success with those people, because again, something's going to pull you back. It's not natural for you. It's going to wipe you out. I always use the example of Sam in the film Ghost jumping into Whoopi Goldberg's body, poof, and then he's wiped out for the rest of the action sequence. I can't function anymore. This is not good. It's about just kind of just treading into that little pool in the middle, whereas this just like be curious about people, trying to understand people. A great example of this came out the other week. So I started to do some work with Kim Scott's Radical Candor framework, and having this knowledge of the colours in the way that Clarity 4D really promote them and these energies, we use them to really understand that better. So this idea of how do you care personally about people? And what does that mean to someone with lots of red energy, or someone with lots of red energy in that moment? Very different to someone who's got lots of green energy. And the example I think people use was someone with lots of red energy in that moment, to know you care personally about them might only be, I know you're really busy, can I have a couple of minutes of your time?
Yeah, it's a lot about the language, absolutely. But you made me smile when you talked about that, because one of the things, the 2D profile, which you mentioned, which is when you ask other people how they see you in terms of color, and you get your graph next to their aggregated graph. We recommend you ask people outside work as well, home life. And I asked my sister, who leads with a lot of green energy, and I'd sort of done a profile myself because I'd had a tough time going with caring for a relation for a long time. So I thought my green energy, which is normally my third preference, I thought that I've really grown in that because of the way I've been having to be a carer, basically. And when the 2D came back, my sister hardly gave me any green energy. so the conversation, which we often recommend, have the conversation. I said, I was a bit surprised that you, so low. So what can I do more of, or differently, that would mean you see more green energy in me? And she said, and this was such a learn, this is why it's so valuable. She said, well, when I was going through my divorce and I was very stressed and I was talking to you, she said, your empathy came, I said something about, oh, yeah, surely my empathy has grown. She said, your empathy comes across as a red empathy. So everybody can do empathy, basically, but the ways of doing it. So I said, well, I really cared. I want to share. And she said, yeah, but you kept on coming up with solutions and telling me what to do. And she said, I know you're my big sister, but, I didn't want you to do that. I just wanted you to listen. A huge aha moment for me, that people with a lot of green energy don't necessarily need me to charge in like a night and sort all their problems out, which is what my natural tendency is to do. I'm sort of high yellow red, so okay. So now, whenever she has a moment or we talk, I hardly say anything. I just agree with her, and hardly say anything, which is quite contrary to my natural style. But I got the feedback the other day that she feels that I am the most emotionally intelligent person in the family now. So I think, yeah, it's working. It's only taken me about 20 years, but
But we got there. It's all about the result in the end, yeah.
But I've learned when I'm with her, just to listen. And she sends great long emails, and very wordy and intense emails, and I try and reply in a bit more than just saying, right, okay.
Yeah, move on.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting that you've brought up there, that you've hit on, I think, is this idea of feedback as well, because quite often, especially, we don't know it's because of this, but those different energies, it's quite difficult to give feedback in a way that's going to land well, and some people will shy away from that because of that, or some people will just give too much and just carry on. But I find that the 2D discussion, but particularly the 2D profile, the feedback profile report, it's a great starting point for the flow of feedback, as it was in your story there. Having these two charts suddenly pop up and go, well, you know what, I can't pin this on one person because I've asked 5, 10, 20 different people, and this is the aggregated chart. And as my brother-in-law says, what can't speak can't lie. So It's there. And I go, wow, I need to try and interpret this and take this on. This is what other people have said. And it could be exactly the same as the way you see yourself.
Mhm.
It could be a slight nuance to it. It could be like mine, the complete opposite of how I see myself, which for me was great because I've done a lot of work on this sort of stuff myself in the past. So I understood it. I went, yeah, I get it. And I'm going to speak to them. And we all talked about it and it was brilliant. Some people, especially that facilitator we talked about before, it could be a massive conflict of a crisis, a personal crisis. Well, which am I?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, that tool there, and I think, that's a really important one to just delve into a second here. That opening a feedback channel, which in the case of your sister then led down the line to some aha moments for yourself, and obviously then some kind of changes that you wanted to make, and kept that channel open down the line for her to then say you're probably the most emotionally intelligent person in the family as well. Opening those feedback channels and understanding other people's perspectives is massively important for organizations now.
Well, I think so. I think so. The challenges of working remotely and all these sorts of things now, quite different world, isn't it? And I think the more you can use tools like Clarity, and obviously we would recommend Clarity over the others, it can help understand people, bring them close together. I mean, we feel that it should not be just for the corporate world. We have profiles for young people because they are going through even tougher times than the other generations. So from 14 upwards, we would help with saying, this is who you are, these are your strengths, areas for you to think about. And because I hear so often when I go into run sessions, more when I was in your position, Rob, people saying, oh, I wish I'd understood, middle-aged people saying, I wish I'd understood this at the beginning of my career. It would have helped me as I move forward. So we have the profiles for young people, graduates. We have different flavors for different people, but it's still the same four basis. Yeah.
Well, I think you speak to so many people nowadays and see so many TED Talk videos, and it'll talk about, the things that we don't learn at school that are really important. How to actually talk to other people, how to listen to other people, how to have great conversations, how to just want to understand, build relationships, build rapport. And this is a fantastic way of starting to build that awareness. And like you say, over the course of time, again, we'll never know whether it's age or not, maybe, but it might alter. To my opinion, it'll alter probably 50 million times in the course of a 24-hour period, maybe as well. But it's a great tool it's great that the kids can do it as well, rather than just a career session that we joked about earlier on. You're going to be a bus driver when you're older. There you go, off your pop.
Yeah.
This stuff,
Karen.
so this stuff gets a lot of it also gets a lot of resistance in organizations. And I think, in two ways. The one is the general resistance of the pigeonholing, the colours, wanting more science behind it, all that sort of stuff. And then the other one is the kind of, as there is with a lot of things, coaching included, is the sign off of it. Speaking to the CEO and convincing them that this is a good idea to invest in this sort of stuff. And you've mentioned in the past that's been quite prohibitive with some tools as well. What do you think sets it back? What do you think is the resistance out there, or that you've encountered when you've visited companies with this?
I think if the decision maker is coming from a place with a lot of red and blue energy, which is a double whammy of thinking, they may this is my belief, they may perceive personality profiles as being a bit touchy-feely, bit like star signs. They don't understand the impact it can have on individuals. So when you recognize that from your point of view, Rob, if you're talking to decision makers who are going to be looking for the value, we have another product to offer, which is the Team Dynamics report, which is far more suitable to people who want data, facts, figures, something to measure, because the team dynamics report is like a 360 competency for a team. So it's not measuring your own competency, it's measuring the team's competency in 16 areas, which would be linked to colours. So the blue areas around planning and processes, etc. The red areas around strategy and vision. The green areas, I'm just giving you off the top of my head, trust and team communication. And the yellow one would be about creativity and transformation, etc. So all the team members answer that anonymously, because we want them to be open and honest about how they see the performance of their team. And then the client has got something that he can actually see and understand and measure. That we've got a percentage of the score gives you a percentage, and the ranking of that score would tell whether it's a poor performing team, an average performing team, a good performing team, or a high performing team. So you've got something, and then you could go away and think, right, okay, why are we low in this particular area? And then you may start thinking about, okay, well, who are the people in that team? And because they're all linked with the colours, it just makes a nice flow that organisations can work from the opposite end, if you like. Rather than looking at the people first, they look at the performance of the teams first, the competency, effectiveness of the team.
So for those kind of energies, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's more about that, it's helping them build a bigger picture of what challenges there are, and then maybe down the line the color profile becomes a part of that solution, as opposed to this is going to solve your problems.
Yeah,
because that's too touchy-feely, not for me. Whereas I suppose the opposite is true, is it? If you get a kind of decision maker who's got more of the green and yellow energy flowing, what responses do you tend to get then?
Well, very often it's they would see more the value of profiling, usually, I would say. And it's a matter of convincing them that some of the other products on the market are overcomplicated, deep, which means you need to explain it all before anything actually happens. It can be rather expensive. So an acronym that we have of simple, affordable, and effective. Well, actually, there's another one, global, because we work a lot in Africa and other parts of the world. SAGE. So SAGE spells for simplicity, affordable, global, and effective. So it's wise to use Clarity 4D because you get, and I mean, the longevity of our clients, it really gets embedded in the organization because of the way we operate with that 4D approach. We've had our clients for 10, 15 years. And they keep using the idea of the colours in their language, in their all sorts of different things. So I think if you have people who are resistant, there are ways of measuring now, staff engagement, the number of grievances could be reduced, staff turnover. All sorts of things like that could be measured if you wanted to get to see the value of using the personality profiles.
Yeah, you say most HR teams or those types of teams will have figures on that sort of stuff. How much does it cost to replace a certain body when they leave, and the recruitment of another person into that role? How much does it cost if we get so many sick days a year, or stress, all that sort of stuff? Being able to just pick that up and start to attribute the fact that these happier places or more engaged, and going back to your earlier point, actually this might be the sort of stuff that then engages and motivates people because we're taking an interest in them, which is cool. And I know you mentioned, I think before the call to me as well, you mentioned the idea of the 4 Ps, which really really brings to life this idea that it's real, this stuff. It's like it's meant to have an impact, not just a nice day out.
Yeah. Okay. Before I talk about that, I just want to tell you about I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday whose son is involved in the IT of the Olympics. That's his job. He goes. He's in Paris at the moment. He goes to all the Olympic. A wonderful job. He loves the job, but he's seriously considering leaving because of his line manager.
Yeah.
Well, that to me, is ridiculous. That if you're going to lose somebody who's good at what they do, love the job, and then because of one person's inability to connect with his team members, that to me, that's what it's all about, really, in a 100%. Nutshell.
And I think, even bigger than that as well, because I completely agree with you, the fact that someone's in a role that they enjoy so much and is thinking about leaving. Looking at that leader, but then also, this is about culture and, what's the relationship between that leader and their peers and that leader and their manager, what's potentially forcing them or putting them or making them believe maybe they have to be in a certain state or a certain energy zone. Quite often, and it still happens, unfortunately, quite a lot of management development is kind of monkey see, monkey do. That, there's a lot of redness needs to come out when you're a manager, and to prove that you're a good manager, you need to be. You're not one of the team now. You need to tell them how it is, and it's results, and it's blah 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 blah. And sometimes that pressure comes from elsewhere rather than within. It can come from within.
Yeah.
Quite often from elsewhere as well.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, so the 4 Ps, this is something I talked about a couple of weeks ago at a conference, and it seemed to go down quite well. So the 4 Ps referred to productivity, people, and personality profiling. And I was talking about the fact that productivity has flatlined for many years, and we hear about it all the time on the news. And in fact, the day before, there was an article in the Sunday Times, which I held up, and mentioned it. So how it was really about what can we do? Because all the reasons why productivity is flatlined are things like the economic climate, the COVID, Brexit, all these things. And even this article in the Sunday Times talked about another reason, energy. We haven't got nuclear energy. So I talked about the energy of people. If we could engage people more with enjoying their work and putting more in, then maybe that's helped with productivity. It seems a bit simplistic, I know, but I referred to the book. I don't know whether you're familiar with this. First Break All the Rules.
No, I'm not seeing that one.
It's quite an old book.
Looks well read, I was about to say.
yeah. It's actually about 20 years old, but it was a Gallup poll, and really probably based a lot of what these companies, organizations use for their engagement surveys. But one of the questions was, does the mission purpose of my company make me feel like my work is important? That was one of the questions. And then likewise, in the top best places to work survey with the Sunday Times, you can tell I read that, a few weeks ago, was something along the lines of, do I feel that I'm in line with the values of my company? And so I talked about that. I talked about energy. We just talked about the elements, the energy, and knowing and understanding yourself, and then measuring your teams to see where they are, and then thinking about how you could include the values of the company into any induction program with a profile. So, we could create, or they could create. I did one of my things I used to do with Dale Carnegie, a memory stack. Are you familiar with that
No,
technique?
go on. Whether I am or not, I'll tell you in a minute when you've explained it. It might have been called something else. You never know.
Well, I picked out a runner-up in this best place to work. It was a care home in Edinburgh, and they were runners-up in their medium-sized company, I think. I thought, I looked at them. I thought they've got 12 values. And I and I taught those 60 odd people the values of that company within 5 minutes. And you do it by creating mental pictures and getting them to remember them. So the first one was a big tick, and it was igniting a firecracker that landed on a banner with saying celebrating 100 years. But I won't go through all of it, but I can still remember it a fortnight later. And the first value would be positive. Second, be pro. There were really too many values for a company, to be honest, but you know that's what's be proactive with the firecracker. Then celebrate growth and success, so that there was a celebration banner with 100 years, and it went on and on and on. So I introduced that concept, which was one of the things that Dale Carnegie would teach people on how to be confident when they go into new situations. You have this memory stack of things to remember. It's a great technique, and it really gets people engaged. And so the feedback afterwards was, you know, great, because I got them all up and talking and, you know, doing it. So how do you engage people? That's the thing, to do more. And I said to them before I gave them this list, I said, what's your attitude like? Because, you know, have you got a positive attitude? Because this is you're going to remember 12 things within 5 minutes. And I said, I really hate it when I go to a party and you're going to be introduced to 4 or 5 people, and somebody said, oh, I'll never remember your names. And of course, it's the self-prophecy. You don't bother, which is disrespectful for the people you're about to meet. Just saying, I'll never remember your name. Makes me cross.
I need to remember never to say that now when Clarity 4D event. Judy will be watching.
No, we do help by giving people name badges, but no, but it is you know, if you've just been introduced to people, it's a cop-out, isn't it? Say, oh, I'll never remember your name.
Yeah, I've seen many people talk about it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, like you say, and it's like, well, it's no harder than other things, and there are techniques. Yeah, it's a tough one. I think something else that piqued my interest. I think a couple of weeks ago, I noticed it for the first time. So on the front of the profiles now, you've got the badge, the British Psychological Society, the registered test.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, that shows that we are now validated by the British Psychological Society. We are not validated as a deep tool that can, you know, really analyze or measure people against other people, which is what they typically do. It's used as a measurement profile. But Clarity 4D has never claimed to do that. It's always been to help you understand yourself and open up the conversations. That is the purpose of it. So after many years, it's taken us, because we had to get the data. We started off in South Africa because we thought that it would give us a really good variety of ethnic backgrounds. So it's not just one, you know, ethnicity. But then the organisation that did all the assessment went into administration. So then we took it to the British Psychological Society, and then they were investigated. I don't think many people know. At one stage, they were investigated with the charity side of things. So that held things up. But we've got it now. So we're proud to display it, because we think that gives gravitas to say that we are a good quality profile for the reasons I've said, not to measure you against other people, but to help build relationships.
Absolutely. You know, this is this for me. So I've got my own mantra in my work, which is mindset, tool set, skill set. And the idea is that, you know, quite often we do that in a different order. Quite often we will start trying to solve a problem or a challenge with the skill set. Let's train them how to do that. Let's do a psychometric training day. That'll solve it. Then that becomes the tool, and we'll give you some more tools and lots of different tools to be able to run with that then. And then we sit back and we question the mindset of people as to why nothing's changed. Why are they still doing it the old way? Why aren't they doing any of the new stuff? So I don't use this tool, and you know, I think I felt empowered to use it this way compared to some other tools out there. By your message and by speaking to yourself, I very much don't use it in that skill set or tool set category to start with. It starts in the mindset category. How do we think about this stuff? And you know, and even if I find that I actually welcome it if someone says, I'm not sure that I fully vested in this stuff or believe in it. Let's go through it. Let's have a chat. Let's see what comes out. And oh, well, what does that mean? And what are the perspectives? And have you sent it to some other people and get the 2D? And just, we're not trying to solve anything yet. We're just going to talk about what's coming out of it. How does that make us think? How does that confirm some of the ways we already think? How's that maybe made us think in other ways? Cool. Well, let's now define together how we want to use that as a tool, or what other tools we want to use to kind of get any challenges or opportunities up and running. And if part of the skill set is going to be to do more of this or understand more of this or run coaching conversations more often or whatever it might be, cool, that's the time to do that. But I think the power of this stuff really sits in that mindset category. How do we think about this stuff? How do we think about communication, conversations, personalities, team engagement, team motivation, rather than just initially using it to try and hit the nail of a problem right on the head that we think it'll solve?
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. The begin with the end in mind.
Mr. Covey.
Yeah.
One of his great habits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we've got to the part of the show, I think, where we kind of look back now. So we've had a great conversation there. I've really enjoyed that.
Oh.
What's kind of stands out as the theme, as we could call as a title for the episode, maybe?
Ooh. Well, maybe something around when you're in your element, something like that.
So the first thing I wrote down, when I'm in my element. So when you're in your element, when I'm in my element. I think that was quite cool. That was, yeah. I started worrying about having to fit the 4 Ps onto a single line on my screenshot. So I thought, can I do that? No, maybe that could be a subtitle as well. Maybe there. But yeah, so when you're in your element, that'd be a great one. Brilliant stuff. Okay. So if my listeners would like to know more about what you're up to, but also maybe see and read more about Clarity 4D, where's the best place they can go to do that?
Well, the website is www.clarity4d.com. And if anyone wants to write to me directly, it's judy.oliver@clarity4d.com. Awesome. And I'd be all with welcome receiving their thoughts. And I just want to thank you, Rob, for giving the opportunity to get all this out there. Lovely. It's been great.
Absolutely, no problem. I think it's massively important stuff to get people talking about, and equally, you know, I invite people to comment wherever this is posted, even if that you are resident to bring it into an organization, or even if you've got challenges to it or you don't necessarily agree with it all. Brilliant, let's have the conversation. At least it stretches that mindset. And I'll put those links in the show notes so people can click directly onto them as well. And I know you're on LinkedIn also, so I'll pop that on there so people can come and see your posts also. And equally and gratuitously, I'll add that you can see more about Clarity 4D on my website as well. So please go and take a look. It would be awesome to see the difference it makes. Well, thank you for that. Awesome conversation. Thank you so much for your time and all your knowledge when it comes to this stuff as well. Really enjoyed it, and we'll speak again soon, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Thanks very much.
Bye now. So that's it for today's episode of the Leadership Untitled podcast. This episode will be called When You're in Your Element, as a reference to the Clarity 4D surveys and the 4 different personality styles and types that Judy works with. My thanks again go out to Judy for a fantastic conversation, and to all of you out there for listening to the episode. And please, if you're not doing so already, follow and take a look at the back catalogue of episodes for even more inspiration. Until next time, bye bye.